roof on my wife's Audi A4 is knackered. The rear glass is separating from the fabric and it's getting progressively worse. I think it'd be pretty simple to fix that. Just log on to the internet, see how to repair it, job done. But the problem is almost every video shows the incorrect method and the wrong glue to use. In this video, I'm going to have an attempt at repairing this roof using the correct adhesives and the correct method. But before we start, let's just run over why these roofs fail and why using standard silicone or epoxy or any of the normal products you can get off eBay and Amazon are destined to fail. These soft top roofs with the glass bonded to the fabric will fail after 10 to 20 years. Many people use a solvent-based cleaner, and that solvent-based cleaner can actually weaken the adhesive bond between the glass and the fabric roof. So one way you can extend the life of your roof is not to use a solvent-based cleaner or waterproofer. One of the reasons a repair to one of these roofs using a standard silicone-based adhesive like this is that these adhesives are not rated for the massive temperature swings that you might see. Now, we have a heat wave in the UK at the moment, and this roof temperature here can easily exceed 80 to 90 degrees, and these adhesives are generally not rated to those temperatures. So you need to use an adhesive that will remain flexible and the bond will remain strong at super high temperatures that these roofs are exposed to. Even if you go out and buy a specialist two-part epoxy like this, what you'll find is that if you mix this manually, first of all, you will potentially inject air bubbles into the mix, and that will weaken the bond. And secondly, unless you are mixing the two together precisely, you will not get the desired bond. And that is why most professional two-part bonding adhesives actually come with a mixing tube like this. Now, this is the 3M panel bond, which we've used extensively for fixing one of our Mercedes. But when you squeeze out the adhesive, this tube mixes the adhesive together in exactly the right proportions. And the adhesive that we're going to be using for repairing both the fabric and the roof is this adhesive here from Bulldog, which has been specially developed. And the first thing you will notice is that it too comes with a mixing nozzle. Now, you can go out and buy some epoxy adhesives that come in two parts like this and you just squeeze them on. But this nozzle here is specifically designed to actually mix the adhesives in the right proportion, just like the 3M panel bond. The last couple of points I would say on the choice of adhesive before we actually start this job is a two-part epoxy resin like that will dry hard, and what you need is actually a two-part compound that has some flexibility in it, because this roof will expand and contract both with temperature and also as you're putting it up and down. So two-part epoxy resins like that don't have any flexibility are destined to fail. Example of how misinformation can be propagated across the internet is videos showing the use of the 3M window weld for bonding glass to fabric. That's not what this product is designed for. It's designed for bonding windows into rigid steel frames and certainly not for bonding fabric to fabric or fabric to glass. And last but not least, if you buy a glass adhesive, an adhesive specially designed for bonding things onto glass, that might seem like a great idea at the time. And indeed, with the right thickness, you can get a really super good flexible bond. But the problem is that these adhesives tend to be viscous and they will run, unless you are working on a very flat surface, they will tend to run if you have them at the right thickness. And if you have them at the wrong thickness, i.e. you have a much thinner bead, then you're not getting the correct adhesion that you need. Now, having gone over all the reasons why these repairs fail, I'm going to just quickly tell you why we're going to use this two-part adhesive from Bulldog. This company, a German-based company, they specialize in products for repairing soft-top roofs, not just for gluing fabric and glass to fabric, but also they have products for repairing cuts like this. This is a two-part adhesive, which will give a much stronger bond than the one-part adhesives, and it also comes with a mixing tube. In fact, it comes with 3 mixing tubes when you buy it, so that you can repair roofs in different sections. Although this is a two-part adhesive, it's a flexible adhesive, which is what you want for this repair, and also it's specially formulated to work at the extreme temperatures which these soft-top roofs experience. And finally, the viscosity of this adhesive has been specially developed so it doesn't run down the roof. So where you actually apply it is where it will stay, and finally it will cure within 12 hours. The structure of the these roofs is such that there is a fold here, and that fold needs to be glued back together first before you try gluing that canvas to the window. And not only does it need to be glued back here where it's come apart, but you will see as we go along here that that fold is starting to come apart where this is still adhered to the glass. So we're going to partially open this roof, and then we're going to use a solvent to clean out as much of the old glue inside that crack as we possibly can. And then we're going to leave it overnight to glue with some special clips that come in the kit. So before we start, we're going to cover the car with an old dust sheet just so we don't get any adhesive on the paintwork. This should not be carried out in direct sunlight. Ideally, you want to do this in a nice dry garage. So the roof needs to be completely dry and clean before you do it. And your ideal operating temperature is about 10 to 30 degrees. To make our life simpler, we're going to stop the opening of the roof at this position here, and then we're going to wedge it with something like this. If you don't wedge it, after time, this will sink back down. You definitely don't want to get your fingers trapped in here. The first thing we need to do is remove this headliner here, and it is, how well you'll be able to see that, it is pressed into a channel, so you should just be able to pull it out like so. How we're going to get that back in again is of course another question, but you cannot do this repair without removing this first. Now with this headliner unclipped, you can see the problem here. This is the fold that we need to re-glue. That is probably going to need to be re-glued all the way along. Whether we're going to have enough clips to do that in one go is another question. So you can see even where the bottom edge of the fabric is still bonded to the glass, you can see it should be bonded to the top along here. That should be bonded like that. So we're going to have to rebond that and rebond the fabric at the end here where it's actually come away from the glass. So before we start trying to clean this with acetone, we're just going to go along here with a little brush and get rid of any dust, and then we're going to clean this as best as we can, get rid of any old adhesive using acetone, and then we're going to try and rebond. It's going to be really difficult because rebonding the part of the roof here, we can use little clamps. Rebonding the roof here where it's still adhered to the glass, I think we might have to do that a different method. Once you've removed as much of the dust and loose debris as possible, you're then going to go in there with some acetone and get rid of the old glue residue. Now, you might be able to use something like this, which is an aerosol based stuff for getting rid of old glue. I've never used it in this context before, but we'll see how that works as well. The more time you spend moving residue glue, the better chance you'll have that when you glue these two bits of fabric back together, the bond will actually stick. To say this is actually slightly easier to use with the acetone. You just spray it on and then using a little plastic scraper like that, basically scrape all the glue sludge off and wipe it on one of these, and that seems to work quite well. When you come to actually glue these two bits of fabric back together like that, you're going to be clamping it with these little bulldog clips. Now the kit comes with 12 bulldog clips, so we may have to do this in several goes. Now this is going to be a particularly tricky repair because this window has come off so far along. Obviously don't leave your roof to get to this state before you try repairing it. It's much easier if you're just repairing small patches. So what I'm going to try and do first is just glue down this fold up to there, and then you can take these clips off after about 4 hours and the bond will be there. It won't set for 12 hours, but maybe then we can move the clips along to the other side and leave that overnight and possibly come back and glue this section tomorrow. This is our glue here. The top just comes off. You just twist it that way and the top will just pull off, and then you've got to screw the nozzle on. Now the working time of this glue is about 25 minutes. So you need to make sure you've got the glue in place and everything clamped down within that 25 minutes. Top fits on like that and then screws tight like that. Now you want to make sure that you do not use the first bit of glue that comes out. Just squirt it into a tissue like that, so that you're making sure that you're getting it thoroughly mixed.
You want to do a wavy pattern about 1 millimeter high. When you clamp the two together, that should fill in the gaps. Now all we have to do is go along and clamp. We've just marked off with a bit of marking tape how far we want to glue. So now we're going to use these little clamps to clamp that close. We just need to go along here with these clamps. The perfect size for this. You can see we've got these 12 clamps on here, which has got a little bit of squeeze out there from the top, which is good. We'll leave these clamps on for 4 hours and come back and just clamp the other side, and then set about gluing this back to there, which will be tricky. Unfortunately, if you have to do this job in several goes, you will waste the glue in this nozzle. So we're just going to undo this, seal it back up, chuck this nozzle out, and then we'll have to use another nozzle for the next part of the job. It's the next morning, and hopefully this will now be glued, and we can set about doing the tricky bit of gluing this fold down. The kit from Cabrio Dock does come with this handy scraper, so we're going to try and get rid of any excess glue from the window here. We've cleaned up all the old residual glue as well as we can, and today we're going to continue to glue down the folded fabric. We're using the clips that came in the Cabrio Dock kit. We're also using these clamps that we used to do a soft top roof for Mercedes. And here in the middle, where the material is still adhered to the glass, we're going to just use a board here, so the weight of the roof is pushing that down. And then we're going to use these lovely clamps that came with the Cabrio Dock kit. So these are the clamps that we're going to use when we come to glue the fabric to the glass. Remember, at the moment, we're just gluing the 2 bits of fabric together. And to glue these 2 bits of fabric together here, where this is still, the bottom bit is still adhered to the glass, we're using a series of these neodymium magnets. There's one on this side, and there's the same magnet on this side. These are 50-kilogram pull magnets, so they're super strong. And this is, as I say, the fabric is adhered to the glass here, but not adhered to itself. So we're just pushing that down. So this is just a mock-up to make sure we've got enough clamps. Now we're going to take off these clamps, and we're going to actually apply adhesive. And then tomorrow we'll come back and actually adhere the fabric to the glass. We've applied the adhesive, and remember, you've got to work quite quickly. You've got just 25 minutes for this to set. Now we need to remove that and clamp that to the top there, which is the trickiest bit. Next up, we're going to put these super strong magnets here to hold this down. You make sure you don't get your fingers caught between these. Finally, we're going to put a couple of these clamps on here, and as we tighten these screws up, it'll lever up and push this down. Now, we're not actually gluing that to the glass yet, we're just trying to keep these. Bottom of these screws have little plastic caps so they don't damage the glass. The whole process took about 8 minutes. Now, this is the one that we've used. I did actually buy 2 of these just in case, because we have got big repairs to do. But you can see there is still plenty of glue left, and we could probably get away with just one of these. And definitely, if half of your window wasn't hanging out like ours, I think you could get away with just one of these. It's the next morning, and hopefully we have now finished gluing all the fabric together, and it's time to actually glue the fabric onto the glass. We've just let this roof go all the way down, sink all the way down, and you can see, because it's been knackered for a little while, it's actually stretched slightly. So if we were just to glue this down in this position here, you would see that that's not actually in the right position. This needs to be pulled up, and the easiest way to achieve that is actually to lift the roof up and glue it, rather than it being down in the flat position, to have it raised slightly. So when it falls down, this will stretch, and you best make sure that you've left that glue to cure, because when it stretches, you do not want it to pull off on the first day. You can see the same is true here. If we just try to glue this roof down in this position, this fabric would be in the wrong position. So we're going to lift the roof up. We'll start with that side there and come back tomorrow and do this side. We're just going to use a couple of neodymium magnets to push this down, because it has a propensity to pull up with the roof in this position, and we need this to be
perfectly square and level before we start taping it out. So I've already seen one schoolboy error. If we use masking tape that thick to mask the line here, we are not going to be able to stick these on efficiently. Carefully gone along there with a razor blade, and hopefully just enough to give me a perfect line without scoring the glass, hopefully. So here's the plan. In the kit from Cabrio-Doc, you get a little paintbrush, and that is to get right into the edges. You can also use this orange plastic spatula, which is used to keep those orange pieces together. And it's important that when you're doing this, you just take up about 5 millimeters of roof that wasn't damaged, just so you get a nice clean surface. So we're going to use the brush to get in right to the edges. We've taped where we're gluing to, and then hopefully we're going to use this super fine nozzle just to get in there with the glue, and then we'll clamp everything down and come back tomorrow and see how we got on. Right, we've got these clamps on here. We're using 2 or 4 neodymium magnets just to hold the corner section on here. And we will come back tomorrow and take those clamps off. It's the next morning. I'm gespannt, as they say in German, to see how this has worked. So let's get these clamps and magnets off and take a look. Now let's see how easy it is to get this masking tape off. The good news is that the bond between the fabric and the glass on here looks really secure, absolutely great. What I'm not quite so pleased about is this moved this way a millimeter slightly, so just moved in that way, but I'm sure it's not something you'll particularly notice, but we'll have a go at doing the other end, and hopefully we won't make that mistake. It's really important that you get rid of all the excess glue, both on the underside of here and on the pane, so that this bond can work. And the kit from Cabrio-Doc does come with some of these Scotch pads here, and also obviously that razor blade, which helps a lot. We just test fitted the magnets and the clamps. I haven't tightened them down yet or put any adhesive on, but if you are really struggling with waves getting them flat, just try lowering the roof a little bit and you might find that that helps. It is nigh impossible to match the fabric up to the underlying line in our case, simply because this has been broken for so long that the fabric has probably contracted in the sun, so it no longer fits nice and evenly, but it'll be an awful lot better than it was. We've got that glue on. Now we just need to clamp the whole thing together and come back tomorrow and see how we got on. It is the next morning, and let's see if we have finally repaired this roof. Apparently that Cabrio-Doc kit comes with decent masking tape. What you don't want to do is buy cheap masking tape that leaves glue residue all over the roof or even the window, which is really difficult to get off. What we'll do is just very carefully cut along the edge here so we can remove that piece of tape and hopefully get a beautiful clean line. Once again, not 100% perfect, but an awful lot better than it was before, and that bond looks really secure. So let's just see what happens if we put the roof down now. Several days since we repaired the soft top on this car, and you'd be really hard pushed to see that it had been repaired. That Cabrio-Doc product has worked really well. This roof has been up and down several times. It's been in the sun and the rain, and I'm totally happy with that repair. Now in the next video, I'm going to be showing you how to remove green algae and mildew off a soft top roof and stop it from returning. We're also going to be testing whether or not you can simply put the wet and forget patio cleaning product on a roof to achieve the same goal.